Some alarming statistics yesterday about the coronavirus cases spiking in this country. Here's one you want to listen to. Yesterday, the U.S. reported the largest single-day increase in cases since the beginning of the outbreak. Just a reminder, more than 121,000 Americans have already died from COVID-19, and the CDC now says nearly 30,000 more could die by mid-July. We are not finished the first wave. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, speaking of a lot of the other things that we have to get to, on Capitol Hill, House Democrats are expected to hold a vote today on their police reform bill amid nationwide protests. This vote comes a day after the Senate Democrats blocked a different reform bill in the Senate from moving forward. And of course, this was one that was presented by the Republicans and backed by the president. So we want to bring in Weijia Jiang to talk a little bit more about this police reform bill, these two competing police reform bills. The Democrats in the Senate, Weijia, said that they didn't think the Republican version went far enough. And in the House, they are moving forward with a vote. But we've got these two competing bills. Where does the president stand? Both bills have a lot of overlap, but they also have some significant differences.
So President Trump says he would support the Republican bill, which, as you mentioned, Democrats say are merely just crumbs of what they are asking for. And just yesterday, here at the White House, he once again said that he is open to it, that he, appreciates the work, especially that Senator Tim Scott has done. But he also said he won't sacrifice, I guess, what he believes are the most important factors, which he says we will not hurt the police. We will not do anything to hurt the police. And he hasn't defined exactly what that means, but he has said that he would support measures to put restrictions on chokeholds, to also introduce a national database that keeps track of all those officers who are involved in use of force cases. He's open to more training. But again, Democrats say that's not enough because this bill, they argue, does not actually ban chokeholds. They say it doesn't address qualified immunity, which has to do with whether an officer can be held personally liable. They say it doesn't address going into someone's house without a warrant, no-knock warrants. And so, that's why it failed yesterday. But this does open up a discussion about how to move forward, opens up negotiations, and we'll have to see where the president is willing to go on this, how far he's willing to go, because clearly lawmakers will continue to try to find some compromise, especially in this moment in time for our country.
Well, it's a good question, Weijia, with regards to which direction the president of the United States will go. These lawmakers, both Democrat and Republican, are looking for real solutions. And for some people, it will be enough, and for some others, it won't be. But the question, of course, always is whether or not the commander-in-chief has the ability to listen to these different lawmakers and to listen to the citizens of this country who elected him, to understand the nuance in the discussion that is being had between both parties, and not view it through the prism of just re-election or just the base. And that is the question that is going to linger for the next 4 months. I wonder, too, Weijia, there have been protests around the country that have called for the removal of Confederate monuments. President Trump says he plans to put forward an executive order to protect them. And there have been other statues, let's be clear, that have come down. It's not just Confederate monuments that in many instances local governments have chosen to take down. People are attacking a lot of different statues. There's already a law in place, though, to punish people who vandalize monuments of veterans, for example. So what would this executive order add to it?
Well, that's the question we've been asking all week here at the White House, ever since the president said that he had plans to sign an executive order. And even yesterday, when he was directly asked about this during a news conference, he didn't provide any details. In fact, he kept mentioning that federal act that already makes it a crime to vandalize or destroy these veterans' monuments that are on public property, that carries a penalty of up to 10 years in prison. And so the president keeps saying that, this order will present a more unified manner, for prosecuting these cases and for catching these criminals, but we don't really know what that means. The Washington Post, I should say, is reporting that U.S. Marshals have been told to get ready to help protect these monuments across the country. But again, the White House has not come out and said that that is part of the order. In fact, sources say that the text is still being drafted, and the president hopes to sign it by the end of the week, which is tomorrow.
Weijia, I want to move into how this country is dealing with the coronavirus. We're hearing now that there may be a change in the way coronavirus testing sites are funded. There are a lot of places in this country that you can go and get tested for absolutely free. And we know that testing is an important element of containing this virus. What are the changes that are being floated, and what's the reaction been?
So there are 13 sites around the country that are still relying on federal funds, and 7 of them are in the state of Texas, which, along with California and Florida yesterday, recorded the highest number of cases for a single day. And that's why we're hearing from public officials in Texas especially saying that they still need these federal funds for testing, and it's not the right time to pull it. But HHS and the administration is saying that, these plans have always been in the works to provide this funding until the end of this month, because the administration has already given individual states enough money to get on their own feet, to establish their own plans, and to test on their own. And so, HHS officials are saying that, these states are ready and they have what they need. And there are already other, additions to their efforts, for example, testing at pharmacies. So there is conflict here because regardless of the political party, you have officials coming out from these states that are impacted saying that, no, we actually still need your help. And so we'll have to, see how this plays out. But as of now, that funding is going to stop. And we know it's not because of lack of money. In fact, the administration is sitting on billions of dollars that have already been approved and allocated to national testing, but they're claiming they're holding on to it to wait for a strategic deployment to see where the need is the most, and that's where the money will go. But they're not just going to hand it out, even though it's already been designated for national testing. And so there still remains a question about why, if the states are saying that they actually don't have enough and they would like some more help, why the government isn't listening and saying, okay, we'll extend this funding.
Yeah, you got to wonder if when they sort of mapped out how the funding was going to be spent and that it was going to end, if they anticipated the largest single-day increase in cases in this country would be happening, close to the end of June, when I think, a few months ago, everyone thought that maybe we would be coming out of this thing. Turns out we're not at all.
And another important piece of this is what...
Oh, sorry,
I just want to mention quickly that another important piece is what the president recently said about slowing down testing. Of course, there's been a lot of different comments about whether he was joking or not. The president himself said he doesn't kid. And so there were a lot of people speculating that this funding was being pulled because the president said he wanted to slow down testing. But the administration is pushing back fiercely on that, saying again that from the beginning, the plan was always to gradually end this funding, and it has nothing to do, they claim, with what the president has said about a slowdown.
Interesting stuff. I'm glad you brought that up. Context is everything. Thanks a lot, Weijia.
Sure.